And so, again, my feeble mind, this is all I can think when I think about those fountains in that verse that we just read. Proverbs 8:28 and 29, when he made them from the skies above, when he established the fountains of the deep, when he assigned to the sea its limit, so that the waters might not transgress his command, when he marked them out of the foundations of the earth. And that's a Proverbs passage. One more here. This is one that's found in the New Testament, 2 Peter. This is a great verse, and it's talking about really salvation. But for they deliberately overlook this fact. Go back and read, kind of get this in context. The fact that the heavens existed long ago and the earth was formed out of water and through water and by the word of God. And that means the world that then existed was deluged with water and perished. And so I think we can maybe underappreciate the world that was compared to the world that is now. And when you think about all mankind, all the animals, everything that existed before the flood being wiped out, when it was deluged with water, it was rained down with water, and it was wiped out. One thing in my study that I discovered, and I'd heard a little bit about this, but I know a little bit more about it now because I've looked into it a little bit further. But did you guys know that nearly all major cultures has a flood legacy? Like there's over 200 flood legacies throughout the world with these different cultures. How do you think that happened? How do you think that came about? And does it have any significance to the global flood that we're talking about now? God's flood, Noah's flood. Comments? How'd it happen? Mike Rain. It absolutely is worldwide. Mike said the water went 15 feet. Donna wants to contest that. Okay, Mike, your turn. Look, let me tell you, y'all argue about this when you get home tonight.
I just watched a documentary on it, and even the men in the documentary, they were saying 24 feet
Okay.
above, because the ark would pass over. Well, the displacement of the ark, you have to have enough for it to get over the top of even the tallest mountain. So, and here's the thing, if it was 24 feet above the tallest mountain, then that means it was above all the others.
Yes.
So it's not local.
So it's not local, it's not a regional flood, it's a global, worldwide flood. But now I have an opinion of this tallest mountain thing, because I think the earth that existed then was different than the earth existed now. So I'm going to say that Mount Everest maybe wasn't even there before the flood. I'm thinking there was a lot of geological change.
There has been. But, and their thing is also, they say, well, people say, well, if it was all over the world, then where's this water go? Well, the tectonic plates, the world at one time was all together. All the land was together.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that when this happened, things spread apart. So you had the tectonic plates, and that's probably where the water came up from. But then, once it was over with, you got like the Mariana Trench. And the point of the matter is the water's still here. It's just that the seabed is now miles deep as opposed to just being
Shallower. Yeah. Okay. All right. So on our, yes, sir, Mike. Okay. Yeah. It did. That's right. So here's some stuff that I read. Okay. So think about this, because it kind of makes sense to me. What happened when Noah and his family got off the ark, um, you know, they were to fill the earth. Did they do that? What happened about 400 years after that? I'll give you a hint, huh? Tower of Babel. And so that disbursement, that Tower of Babel, all those people that gained those different languages went out to different places, but they had that history, that story of the flood. And so that's why these cultures have a flood legacy, a flood story to tell. And so you can read about some of those. Some of those are really similar to the biblical story of the ark. Some of them are not. Some of them get a little bit away from it. But nevertheless, there's over 200 flood legacy stories in different cultures. Okay, here's a sign that we see a lot. I don't want to get too gross or anything, but what happens to animals that get hit on the side of the road? I mean, do they... Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Potluck Sunday. Just kidding, Charles. Yeah. Yeah, so do these animals, do they lay there until they fossilize? No, they don't. They get eaten by buzzards and by possums and by everything else that comes along and eats those things if the city doesn't come by and pick them up, or county, or whoever does that gross work. But anyhow, but no, they don't. They
Well, they would if you had seal.
well, that's right, but it
How we get the fossilized from the flood is because, you know, once all that comes up, it brings up dirt and everything else with it. Once it settles down, all that goes back down. So anything that's dead under there is going to be under feet and feet of seal.
and that doesn't happen with roadkill.
No.
And so that's the point. The point is when animals, dead carcasses, lay beside the road, they don't lay there until they fossilize. Number one, for that to happen, the oxygen supply has to be cut off. So you're right; they've got to be buried deep, and they got to be buried quickly. Yes. Okay. What? Yeah. So let's talk about some of that. So this is my collection right here. What do y'all think? The one you see that's a lamp shell. Man, I've looked for that thing in my office and I can't find it any place. Maybe I threw it away. But the other one I brought with me, and man, that thing is so cool. Charles, that's where I got this. You and I might have fought over this had you seen it first, but I got this from the ditch in front of our house, believe it or not. And when I saw it, I thought, man, that thing is so unique. But so I looked at it, and it's a honeycomb coral. And I'm just like a mediocre lumber salesman, but I can look at this and tell that that's a coral. But it's a. And then if you look at that middle picture, I don't have a pointer, but if you look at that middle picture, can you see that little shell that's kind of stuck in there too? Man, there's so much geological stuff going on with this rock. Little old bitty rock, but there's so much going on with it. And then if you look close, you can also see some more coral that's fossilized into that. So a lot of stuff happening with this rock. Well, I asked AI about it, and AI said it was 480 million years old. So it's a prized possession. Rodney, I'm going to put this in my will for you. Just because it's that old. But anyhow, and then here's another one. Did y'all see this? Did everybody see this article that came out it came out on the news feed? They nicknamed it Sharkensaw. That's the truth. This is in Science News today, but this shark skeleton was discovered in the Fayetteville Shale, and if you've lived in Fayetteville long enough, you've heard of the Fayetteville Shale, and it's associated with the White River, some tributaries from the White River. But here's what the article said. It said, for most of history, sharks have been left behind only whispers of their existence, a tooth here, a jagged edge there, sharp mineralization fragments scattered throughout the stone. Their bodies built mostly from cartilage, vanish almost as quickly as they fall to the seafloor. Unlike bone, cartilage rarely survives the long journey into deep time. But in northwest Arkansas, something extraordinary happened more than 3 million years ago. Y'all didn't know that. Beneath the ancient waters that is now known as the Fayetteville Shale, dozens of sharks escaped the usual fate of dissolution and decay. Their skeletons, three-dimensional and remarkably intact, were sealed into stone, not flattened impressions, not scattered fragments, entire forms preserved in astonishing detail. And that's right here in northwest Arkansas. And so the point is, when we talk about global flood, it was here. There's too much marine life. There's too much marine life for the flood to claim that the flood was a regional flood, a flash flood, a localized flood. There's just too much of that. All right.
I mean, they found fossils in the Sahara and all the desert regions
Oh yeah.
already.
On the highest of mountains. Yeah, there's marine life on the highest of mountains. Now figure that out. How do the evolutionists think about that? I mean, what's their defense of their theory when you have that marine life? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. How many guys have seen this picture? Anyone ever seen this picture, this fossil? This is, when you talk about fossils, and Donna mentioned it, the fact that fossils are generally created really quick. With the animal, whatever it is, whether it's a possum or whatever, a fish, it has to be buried really quickly. The oxygen has to be taken away really quickly for things to fossilize. So there's some things that really have to fall into place for fossils to be made. I'm going to say it. Ichthyosaurus. Ichthyosaurus. This is a fossil of an ichthyosaurus giving birth. Now, if fossilization takes millions of years to happen, how does this ichthyosaurus fossilize giving birth? And so when we think about fast fossils, that's what we're talking about. How about this one? Polystrate fossils. Polystrate fossils, it means many layers. And this is actually a tree that is fossilized into the side of this mountain. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this here in northwest Arkansas. Maybe I haven't, just hadn't paid attention. But polystrate fossils are something that is hard to defend against as well, because it takes, for something to be a polystrate fossil, you have to have several layers of strata that make up that. Several sections of rock, tree trunks buried vertically. There's some of this stuff up in Nova Scotia. But what typically happens to organic material like wood? If you leave it out exposed too long, what's going to happen to it? Yeah, it's going to rot. Unless it's that good Boise Cascade lumber.
They found palm trees buried under the ice in Alaska.
Okay.
And I mean, not fossilized, but palm trees.
Yeah. So most wood, you're right, it will rot. Now there's some durable species, like in Alaska where you live, some Alaska yellow cedar that make them totem poles out of it. It's a durable species, but it's still going to rot given enough time. And here in the South where we are, it really is going to rot. So for a tree to be fossilized in the side of a mountain, something dramatic had to happen. Something catastrophic had to happen for that tree to get fossilized like that. And that something was the biblical flood. I want to mention something else that I forgot to mention when we were talking about fast fossils. Tracking. Hang on just a minute, Mike. Tracking. So there's fossils that have been discovered of animal tracks and then the fossil of the animal. So when you think about fast fossils, how does that happen? It's because the animal was walking, it was deluged with mud from mudslides or whatever else, great flood, and it was buried quickly, and and everything fossilized. Its prints, its carcass, everything. Mike, what do you got for us? Okay, and that's good information. So there's blessings from the flood. Okay, all right, that's good stuff. What do y'all think about this? Greg, I put this up here for you because I knew you'd like it. Y'all, every now and then we'll have some flash flooding around here, right? And this is a picture of a flash flood. I have no idea where it was taken, but what did the cattle do? The cattle all rushed to the highest point in the field, didn't they? To keep from being washed away by the floodwaters. So when we think about dinosaur graveyards, which, by the way, there's a lot of dinosaur graveyards, I can only imagine this. I can only imagine all those dinosaurs trying to get away from that floodwater, and they go to the highest spot, and God has a different plan, and he wipes all that stuff out, and you end up with a dinosaur graveyard. This one is at the, I'm not sure who Earl Douglas is, but this is the Dinosaur National Monument. It's right there on the Utah-Colorado border. I've never been to it, but but I did look at some pictures. It's a national monument, and so when you think about dinosaur graveyards, you may search 1,000 square miles and not find a dinosaur bone, and then you may dig and you may find more than you can count, and that's what's referred to when it talks about dinosaur graveyards. And so it's interesting in this museum in Utah, and again I've looked at the pictures. It's a national park, so you can go look at the pictures as well. But there's a mural on the opposite side of this rock wall, and it's interesting what it says on the face of that. It says this mural shows various dinosaurs wading through deep water, and then under the mural the sign reads, "A seasonal flood." This scene of 145 years ago is based on clues found in the rock behind you, carcasses brought downstream by fast-moving muddy water and washed into a shallow sandbar, or washed onto a sandbar. Some of them were buried completely by tons of sand, their bones preserved in nearly perfect state. And so, yeah, it was a flood, but it wasn't a seasonal flood. It wasn't a flash flood. It was a global flood. And so that's the dinosaur graveyard. I got to go. Does someone have any comments on this stuff? I'm going to try to get through the material. There's a lot of it. Okay, mastodons with undigested daisies in their stomach. And so, yeah, that's interesting as well, Mike. You don't think about stuff like that when you think about, the fossil record. Hang on just a minute. So this is a good slide. This came from the Apologetics Press website. If you hadn't been to their website, I really encourage you guys to look at that if you're interested at all in apologetics. They have a lot of great material. There's a lot of great videos. There's a lot of great articles. But this comes from their website. So this pink part is what is referred to as the Cambrian explosion. And we heard some of this when we talked about when I talked about the video that we watched. They talked about some of this stuff in the Grand Canyon. And so what do you think was pre-Cambrian? See that orange block down on the bottom? That's pre-flood. Very little, if any, fossils at all there. And then so the reason they call that the Cambrian explosion, because they get down to a certain depth and it just explodes with fossils and fossils of marine life and other types of life. There's just an explosion of that. There's no history, there's no record of transitional fossils. In other words, if evolution's true, how would things fossilize if evolution's true? You would see a fossilization of this, and then the next time it would look like this, and then maybe the next time it would look like this as it moves up. There's no record of that. There's no transitional fossilization in the Cambrian explosion. They're all the same. And then, yes, sir. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so, so even, and I'm sorry you can't read this, but even Darwin, Charles Darwin, recognized this flaw in his theory when he came up with the theory of evolution. He recognized this as being a flaw. And so it's something that's important when we talk to people that are evolutionists, that don't necessarily believe in creation. When you talk about the fossil record with those folks, this is a good point to make, and it's a solid point.
Like you said earlier, it's hard to wrap your head around it. This still doesn't do the best justice. It's trying to understand the levels even. If it was like that, evolution talked about it all the time. It would be this and this level, and all these and the next, and the next. That's not what you see. You see everything's mixed together, and even with this picture we have, it's hard to wrap our brains around.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And then something else. Talk about transitional fossils. When God created all the animals, He created kinds of animals, right? And so, like dogs, for example. So like a Yorkie doesn't evolve into a Beagle that evolves into a German Shepherd that evolves into a Great Dane. No, there's kinds of dogs. And so there's different kinds of animals. But as far as transitional, there's none of that in the fossil record. And
the point of that other thing was like that, like it said, kind, as your point now. So the thing is, you didn't need a Great Dane and a German Shepherd and that on the dog. You got a wolf.
yeah,
That's a kind. That's canine. And all the other things, then after breeding and that sort of thing, come into play. Most of the dogs we have now are actually done by breeding.
mm-hmm.
There were no Great Danes, that kind of thing.
Labradoodles.
Right, Labradoodles thing.
Yeah,
You know, they all came from wolves.
yeah, absolutely. They came from their kind.
Yeah.
And that may be true with like tigers and leopards. I don't know. Would y'all believe that I have like totally lost my place in my paperwork? Y'all are so distracting. Okay, let's try to move on. So what about some of the evidences or some of the supposed evidences, some of the assumptions that evolutionists make to us Christians? For example, carbon dating. Doesn't carbon dating prove that fossils are millions of years old? Huh? Mary, are you kidding me? It's not accurate. Okay.
There are several different types of dating, and no carbon dating isn't accurate within exactly years, but it's accurate within thousands of years.
Ed, it's interesting that you say that because the inventor of carbon-14 dating said that exact same thing. It's not accurate. It's not accurate when you're dealing with millions of years. He said it's more accurate when you're dealing with thousands of years, but even that's not true. And I don't know that he recognized that. Yeah. And it also depends on what lab it goes to. So I could send my rock to one, and they may say, yeah, it's 450 years old, but I might send it to another one, and they may say, yeah, it's only 300 million or 300 million. It's kind of all over the map when you talk about carbon dating. This is an article out of a science magazine, and you see the headline there: the crucial archaeological dating tool is wrong and could change history as we know it. And it's talking about that carbon-14 dating, and we mention that because it's one of the most popular ones. Okay, so the one that you would use for the rock is radiometric dating, and radiometric, one of the ways that you date is by measuring. Well, we'll talk about it. Radiometric dating.
Well, like I said last week, if I just go out and pick up the rock and then start carving on it, the rock hasn't changed its age. And a lot of times what they do is they look at how the rock or the granite or whatever they've got sculpted or how they've written on it, how it was done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one way they look at how to date, like if it was Egyptian.
Yeah.
They have an idea of how that was done. They're not dating rock, they're dating how you manage the rock.
So, yes, Mike. Yeah, when you start talking about 1,000,000 years, 100 million, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't even sound correct. It doesn't sound right. So the what I read about radiometric dating is this. It's one method that's used for dating stuff, and they look at certain elements of decay. And if they look at the uranium breakdown, uranium-238, and they look at the uranium breakdown, and they say that it will break down into the element lead over a period of many years. And when the element breaks down, in the case of uranium-238, is called the parent element, or the mother element, sometimes it's called. And the element is in the form, in this case, lead, which is called the daughter element. And so how long is it supposed to take? Well, in the case of uranium turning into lead, half-life is supposed to be 4.5 billion, with a B, years. And half-life is simply the time that it takes for half of the sample of the parent element, the uranium, to turn into the daughter element, in this case the lead. And so if you got 50 ounces of uranium, and then in 4.5 billion years, you'd supposedly have 25 ounces of lead. Does that make sense? It's okay if it doesn't. But there's some assumptions that scientists have to make when they look at this radiometric dating, and they look at the levels of uranium and lead in different rock formations. And, oh man, hey, go out there and tell him not to ring that thing again. Yeah. One of the assumptions that they got to make is the rate of decay has always been the same. That the parent elements have decayed in the past the exact same rate they're decaying today, and that simply can't be done. And I've got a really good example, but I don't have time to tell it. But if you're where's Chris Lehman at? He's not here. Can I pick on your daddy? If Chris was out chopping, oh, there he is right there. If Chris is out chopping trees down, and I sit there and I watch Chris and he chops a tree down, it takes him an hour, and then I go over there and look at, he's got a stack of logs up there, and he's got like 31 logs. I'm thinking, okay, he's been chopping logs for 31 hours. And then I ask him about it, and I say, hey, Chris, you've been out here a long time chopping these logs down. And he's like, oh, no. He said, I was chopping 5 an hour, and then I got tired and wore out, and it heated up in the day, and I've slowed down a lot. So in that case, that's what we're talking about. The rate of decay has to be the same throughout that time period. It can't change. It can't fluctuate. And so that's an assumption that has to be made, that when you talk about this dating method, you've got to assume that that parent element and that daughter element has remained the same throughout time. And you can't do that. You can't prove that. The elements have not been affected by outside forces. Are you telling me that in 4.5 billion years, something didn't seep through that rock, through the pores of that rock? Something has affected that rock if it's truly 4 billion years old. We're going to rush through. Another assumption is that no daughter element existed in the beginning. And so you've got to assume that. Was there lead in it at the beginning? We don't know, because no one is 4 billion years old or whatever it is. So you've got to make some assumptions when scientists and geologists are doing these tests, this radiometric dating. They've got to make some really hard assumptions that aren't provable. You can't do that. And it's easy. I think good science is a Christian's friend, because it's so easy for us to combat these theories. It's just what it's called. Yeah. So you got the parent element, and then you got the daughter element. So it's what it turns into. So the uranium is in the rock. It's the parent element, and over a period of time, it turns into lead, which would be the daughter element. Okie doke. So conclusion. I don't have a lot of thoughts for the conclusion, but I will say this: when you read the flood account in Genesis, when we go back and we read the flood account in Genesis, and we think of a global flood that destroyed all mankind, that destroyed all of the animals on the earth, when you think about that, you think, okay, it's all true or none of it's true. And I think with the classes that we've had on this summer series on Wednesday night, we've proven the fact that the evidence is there for God and His creation. And I'll just say it's all true or none of it's true. So, look at the evidence. Again, get on the Apologetics Press website. There's some other websites. Genesis is History. There's some really good material if you take the time to read it. And look, and going through this study, I've read both sides of it, and this side makes the most sense. The other side, when I think about 450 billion years old, I'm like, that doesn't register. But anyhow. Yeah. So here's a textbook. This is from a textbook, and then we're going to close. It says, during the Cambrian period, life took a big leap. That's that pink period that we saw in that geological column. During the Cambrian period, life took a big leap forward. At the beginning of the Paleozoic era, which is what that is referred to, a great number of different kinds of organisms evolved. Paleontologists call this event the Cambrian explosion because so many new life forms appeared within a relatively short time. Well, what happened? The flood came and it wiped all of them out, is what happened. So, hey, look, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for your comments. Mike and Donna, y'all take it up when you get home. Okay. Hey, look, that makes sense. I believe in both of you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Get out, Mike.
I wish I had known you were doing this. I gave Mike a set of tapes from Bert Thompson. I don't know if you know who that is. He's one of the